Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I applaud the fact that the president looked at China and said, look, we've been asleep at the switch here for far too long. China's been aggressively pursuing their national interests, and we haven't recognized those interests and have taken action appropriately to push back against them. And while I think there's a lot more to be done in developing a strategy that pushes back against China, I applaud the fact that we finally recognize that we had not been aware of or recognized their malevolent intent. I wonder whether the same is occurring today with regards to Russia on the part of the administration. And I say that because what you have described is a series of actions by Russia that are really extraordinarily alarming. And I mean, they're investing aggressively in the Middle East with military personnel, in North Africa, in Latin America, supporting some of the world's worst actors. They are did violate the INF, and Mr. Ford, you indicated that they're about to make a massive investment in increasing the number of nuclear missiles of an intermediate range. They're have made a major investment upgrading their nuclear arsenal. They're developing new technologies, new weaponry. And of course, the invasions of Georgia and Ukraine, they're interfering in elections around the world, and particularly here in the United States. And so I wonder, what is their ambition? What is their strategy? What is their goal? What are they hoping to achieve? Why are they doing these things that a country that has a declining population, a weak industrial base, really ought to be focusing domestically? Given our perspectives, they would be trying to find ways to help their people, to improve their economy, but instead they're investing massively in weapon systems, in interference around the world. What is their objective? From our standpoint, from the standpoint of our State Department, what is Russia's strategy? What is their objective? And I'll let either of you or both respond to that.
Well, I can start, sir. Thank you for the question. I agree with so much of what you said about Russian behavior. That's why we have to impose costs, and we appreciate the support of the Senate in helping us get the legislation right so we can do that. But as part of a broader diplomatic strategy with intelligence pieces, with law enforcement pieces, with financial pieces, and military elements as well. You ask about the motivations. Russia seems to be striking out in order to distract attention from its internal problems. Russia seems to want to dominate states around it as some kind of a buffer, perhaps. And they look for opportunities in order to try to demonstrate that America is weak. So they seek openings in places where there are conflicts and where states may not be as strong as they could be.
Those are tactics. I recognize those tactics, but what is their ambition? Is it to reestablish the Russian Empire? Is it to become a superpower on the par with the United States? What are they? I mean, are they looking to invade other neighbors? I mean, their population is shrinking. Are they looking to grab population from other former Soviet states to rebuild their population and to become more of an industrial power, economic power? But what are they hoping to accomplish?
I think that they want to restore their self-image and their global image as a superpower.
Mr. Ford?
I certainly don't disagree with that at all. I think it's actually quite significant that the national security strategy of this administration expressly calls out both China and Russia as revisionist powers who are engaged in a great power competition with the United States, that it is our obligation as stewards of the national security interests of the American people to pursue and to make sure that we protect those interests. You're quite right about a shift in China policy, Senator, and I think very much the same thing can indeed be said about Russia, that our national security strategy and all that we have been doing since its issuance, I think speaks to. It turns out, unfortunately, that the end of the Cold War did not, as many of our policy community seemed to have assumed. It did not usher in an enduringly benign security environment in which we got to relax and worry about other things. It turns out that during that very period in which we took a somewhat complacent approach to great power competition, Moscow and Beijing were working very hard at their own strategies to build their influence, as we described them in the national security strategy, to take a revisionist approach to the current system of global order. It's now our challenge to make up for that time and to adopt policies that will help stabilize a deteriorating security environment and try to turn that around so that we can find a stable and safe and mutually prosperous way to coexist with them after putting all of these actings out back in line.
Yeah, I would suggest that the goal of having a collaborative coexistence with Russia is not something that they're pursuing, and that they have very different intent, and that we need to be very clear-eyed about what their intent is and to make sure that we develop a comprehensive strategy as opposed to ad hoc sanctions here and there against individuals or against various actions that they take, but that we need to have a very dramatic strategy. I go back to the George Kennan strategy in the days of the Cold War. I'm not suggesting we return to the Cold War, but I am suggesting we develop a comprehensive strategy that gets them to be diverted from the course that they're on, because they are continuing in an activity that is extraordinarily malign and not in the interest of a peaceful world. And that gives me great concern. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.